Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of The Good Life for Nebraska Seniors. I'm your host, Donna Blum with Graceful Senior Transitions, and the purpose of this show really is to provide you with helpful information, trusted resources, and uplifting conversations that are going to help you to have a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life during your golden years. Today, I am so excited to welcome my friend and business partner, Dawn Hovey. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you, Donna. Appreciate being here.
So Dawn and I met for dinner, I don't know, several months ago, but I was telling you all about my new business venture and working with senior clients. And I mentioned to you that I am learning about placement services. You know, I want to help seniors and their families, not only with what to do with the property, right, but also if they need to move mom or dad into a assisted living facility, independent living, memory care, and I want to be able to help with that part of the transition as well. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know this about you, but you have experience, lots of experience working in that space.
Exactly. So it is interesting how you do learn more about people even if you've known them for a long time. Backgrounds, lives go all different ways. So yes, I have a background I was a licensed nursing home administrator. Actually still have my license, just haven't practiced in an actual facility for a while. Received that decades ago. So in school, getting my master's degree, I focused on gerontology. And love working with seniors. I remember my grandparents growing up and just church members and all of that. I love the stories and the heart and the love and the care that 99.9% of them have. So I wanted to focus on seniors, so I thought that would be a great role. And then life, kids, all kinds of things happened and took me out of that. So then I started about 5 years ago doing placement services. And that is very fulfilling in working with the families and the seniors to make the best choices, because there's more options out there than people realize.
Mm-hmm. And there are probably questions that the typical senior or their adult children would not think to ask. Mm-hmm. But working with a placement specialist who knows the ins and outs, they know the questions to ask to make sure to ensure that they're finding the right place. Mm-hmm. is so important. And we're going to get into this more, but really working with a placement specialist is free.
It is free, and people do not realize that, I think, because that old adage of nothing is free, it comes with the price of some way. This really does not. The facilities cover that cost. And so you really have a true advocate on your side, because part of the business also is making sure there's no bias. Mm. So contracts are done with every facility. And facilities want that because they don't have the staff to continually market their facility either, and they don't want a misplacement. Mm-hmm. They don't want to take on a resident that they cannot provide fully for. Mm-hmm. So yes, the services are free to the resident and their family.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. So it's definitely something to consider taking advantage of. And I just think about my own personal experience, and I'm sure you've had similar experiences. Probably many of our viewers have, where they've had to make this decision. It's time for the next step. And that's sort of a daunting task. Where do you start? There are so many different facilities, different levels of care. Oh my, it's heavy, and every family is going to have they're going to have this decision to make at some point in time. You've either been through it, you're going through it now, or you will be going through it. Mm-hmm. But it is a part of every family's journey, really. So I have a question for you about families who may not be familiar with this placement process. What exactly does a senior placement specialist do, and how can working with one make the search easier?
Well, the senior placement specialist works as your advocate. They work as your interviewer, basically, for the facilities, and you lean on their knowledge because we come in with knowledge of how to read the state report on the facility to see what deficits they may have had on their last report. How do they correct those? And those are the technical pieces. But we also look at how does the dining staff help them? How are the interactions with other staff? How does the executive director interact? How does the marketing person market the facility? What's truly going on? And so kind of like you lean on a real estate, licensed real estate professional because of their knowledge, lean on a senior placement specialist to be your advocate in this role. Not only is it free, but that's the role. They are only concerned with finding the correct placement for your loved one. So, and it is a part of life. And fortunately or unfortunately, many of us in that decision-making stage of life are also the sandwich generation. We are dealing with children, maybe small, maybe college age, but families. We're dealing with our own relationships, and we're dealing with aging parents or loved ones. Mm-hmm. So you don't have much time. Mm-hmm. You're still working, most of you, and lean on the professionals. And so that's what we do. We go in, we go on the tours with the family. So we ask the right questions and we guide them on all of that. So we're an advocate for you.
And it is really so important to find the right place. For example, my father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and went into a memory care facility. Well, at one point, about a year and a half into it, we really felt like there was a decline in the service. And so, it was a difficult decision. Do we keep him here? Do we move him? Because moving him is detrimental to where he was in his disease, right? So we opted to have him stay, but finding the right facility from the get-go can alleviate some of that, right? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And life changes and facilities change. Sometimes they go under new management. Sometimes they have new staff. And having a senior placement advocate, specialist on your side, we're in there regularly enough that we keep touch. We have built relationships with the staff. You go in and they're down at not only staff, but the residents even, because some of them we've worked with before and placed. So you go in, they're eating lunch, and you're like, hi, Diane, hi, Denise. Oh, and it's a feeling of home. And yes, you do not want to have to move your loved one,
right?
Especially with cognitive decline.
Right.
It's very detrimental. So lean on the experts to ask the questions and make the best placement possible.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice, and just so helpful. Yeah. When is the right time to begin looking at care options? Many families wait until there's a crisis, like, oh goodness, mom fell, hips broken, can't live on her own anymore. What challenges can that create, especially with waiting lists at some facilities?
There are, yes. So the old adage of, when was the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but past is gone, so when's the best time to plant a tree? Right now. Wow. So start those conversations as early as possible because your loved one wants input. And I know so many want to stay in their home, but when some don't, some need to know there are social opportunities at these facilities. So as soon as possible. But if you are dealing with a crisis, it's even more important to get help because you don't have the luxury of time and you think you might be able to research some of that on your own. First of all, why, if you know about this service, and so many people don't, but if you do, why wouldn't you, is always my thought. And it doesn't cost anything whether you touch base with us now and you don't place for 5 years, and we just look at different ones and just go through the process, or if you need placement within 2 weeks and mom or dad's in a rehab facility and you need more placement, we look at finances, we look at available beds, we look at Medicaid beds, private pay beds. So there's all of that that's taken into consideration. So the answer is as soon as possible, but don't hesitate in a crisis. Don't feel like you have to take the very first bed that's open and the very first one you called because great Aunt Betty lived there. Look around, there are options.
And this is an unfortunate statistic, but 88% of seniors, they want to stay in their home until they can't any longer. They do not have a plan.
No.
They do not move into a care facility until it is a crisis.
Yes, and that can be very depressing for the senior as well.
And very difficult on the family.
Very.
I guess if I had one piece of advice, it would be don't wait. Have a plan. You can reach out to Dawn or myself or any other placement specialist and make that decision early. Know what the plan's going to be for when the time comes that you can't stay in your home or, your mom or dad can't stay in their home. You will have so much more peace of mind if you already know what the plan is. Yeah.
And as Donna has mentioned before, that referral basis. So if you do not have a healthcare power of attorney set up for your parent, all of these, knowing about them, how do we sell the home, all of these things not only reduce stress on the loved one, but your own family. So absolutely, have a plan. And I'm going to give a little personal adage here. My mom passed away I guess it's been 3 years now, and Dad died in 2012, and they lived out in Kansas in rural, 14 acres, not many people around. And Dad actually passed because emergency services could not get to him quick enough because it was pretty rural. So he was not in a stage where that was planned. There was no planning because he was in decent health. But so he's passed suddenly. So Mom, what do we do with Mom? Mom, none of us siblings. I have a sister in California, a sister in Texas, and I was in, obviously, Nebraska. And so Mom stayed there for a few years, and she had dementia, and it was going downhill. And when she, didn't know the buttons on the microwave, we taped out everything but the 30-second button, and you tape out everything on the VCR remote or the TV remote, but there's only so much you can do. And we had to move her. And so she had to move, and we had to pick. And so she went with my sister in Texas due to life stages. And it's warmer in Texas, so there's more ability to move around. But I helped significantly with that placement because we'll get into, but there's independent living and that, moves into assisted living, that moves into memory care if needed. And tough decision. I wish we would have had a plan beforehand between the three siblings because it was hard on Mom and moving to a new state and doing all of that. It wasn't a crisis per se, but now I know so much more about how to help the family make decisions as well as communicate that with your loved one who 88% do not want to leave their home.
Right. Or their plan may be, I'm going to stay in my house until I can't.
Yes, but they don't know when they can't.
Right.
We all don't really understand when we can't.
Well, and there is cognitive decline. You really do want to have these conversations while they are still in a cognitive state where they can understand and make reasonable, rational decisions, right?
Yes.
Not as they have that cognitive decline and no longer even aware that they have some challenges.
Because sometimes if they're not aware they have challenges and you have to move them, you don't want to be the bad guy.
No.
You want to be their loving advocate. And that we also help provide that.
Yeah.
We talk to the senior. We do all of that. So if they need to be upset with anybody. They can be upset with us. And
Right. You don't have
not
to be
their
the bad
loved
guy.
one. You do not have to be the bad guy. And we honestly do know the, the, the best facilities and the best matches.
Yes, very good. So there are so many different types of senior living and care communities. Can you explain the differences between independent, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing facilities?
Absolutely. So the best scenario is you get your loved one in independent living. That means they're still active, they can still make their meals, they're mobile. They're there mostly to form a connection and a community and social opportunities. They always say, and I know we've all heard it, loneliness is the number one thing that we really die from because loneliness is heartbreaking, which makes you not take care of yourself physically and all the other things. So get them in there in independent living. It's fun, it's exciting, they meet new friends, and they walk down to dinner and there's activities, there's bingo, there's field trips, there's all these fun things. And they have their own space, their own home. So independent living. And then we go to assisted living. So those are people that need some level of care, usually mobility, need help getting down to dinner, bathing, medication management. That's a really big one because, obviously that's an easy one to lose track of. And and there's new things. They come in little packets for Monday, Tuesday. I mean, it's getting so much easier, but that's a great thing for assisted living. And often in assisted living, there's levels of care. So you come in at a level 1, you need 2 or 3 hours, maybe at most, service care. And then their costs go up with that, but they get to stay in the same place, in their same apartment or their same home. And then they go up to level 2 with more needs and then more needs and then more needs. And then if they need memory care, several places offer memory care. And once you're already in on independent and assisted living, those wait lists, there's wait lists, a lot of wait lists for memory care. So because people like to stay home as long as possible, current residents usually get priority on that. So memory care, my mother was in a memory care facility for a good 4 or 5 years before she passed. And they are really trained. The staff take much more training in cognitive decline, what you do. You often will see for what we call our escapees or our elopees, you have bans on some residents so they can't get out the doors, things like that. So it's much more about the mental. There's the type of environment is set up for more cognitive ability. You'll see a lot more like black and white colors often because our mind goes to that a lot more and it doesn't cause confusion. So more structured as far as location of different things. So very important. And then skilled nursing. So skilled nursing, think of it as the top level of care you can get outside of the hospital. So it's most often for like a fall and somebody needs skilled 24-hour care for a limited period of time. Or something that they need to heal up from. And then they go back to assisted living. So that's skilled facility. So picture being in a hospital, but just kind of like one step down. So.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And what is a continuous care community?
A continuous care community would be one that does exactly that. You have independent living option, assisted living option, memory care option, skilled option. So as you mentioned, you didn't want to move your dad. So sometimes if you move into only an assisted living facility and mom or dad need memory care, they don't offer that. So then they have to move. So a continuous care is they move in and they are there until the end of their life. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
and that's the goal.
Yeah, much less. I guess it doesn't uproot their lives as much as it's less stress and disruption.
So much less.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If someone is searching for a facility on their own, what are the most important questions they should ask during a tour or a consultation?
Very good question. On their own, well, of course, I would say it's free, so please come ask
Yeah, you
ask
don't have to
us.
do it on
You
your
don't
own.
have to do it on it. That's the thing that so many people don't realize. They get on the internet, mom or dad needs something, and they start looking and they look at Google reviews and things like that. And that's good. Do that. But then please spread the word that this is out there and it's free, because the most important questions really are more observations. So you want to go in, you really want to tour the facility before you place anybody. I guess on the phone or however, number one is, do they have availability? So if you want to get technical, do they have availability? What kind of beds do they have available? So if you're a Medicaid, those are restricted number of beds and facilities that will take some of those. Financial, if you have a strong financial concern, there's different types of setups. Some pay monthly, some you buy in with a large amount of money right at the beginning, and you have partial ownership in the facility. That when the family member no longer needs the services, you get a portion of that back as a true owner. So there's different setups. So I would ask that. And then I would definitely tour, and it's very, look at how people are. You know, everybody's different. So you may see a resident sitting in a chair and may sit there for a couple hours. You may see bingo going on in this room. You may see staff running back and forth. Look at their activity calendar, what's going on, and observe. Really observe. If someone needs assistance, how fat does the housekeeping staff just walk by, or do they pick up their thing and say, we need a CNA over here? Just look, just observe. And you can really tell by a vibe. You know, kind of like when you walk into someone's home, there's a vibe. And senior communities, they're a community, they have a vibe.
And trust your instincts. You know, this might sound strange, but I think most people will be able to relate. Also trust the smell.
It's very true. But I also caution, and no, definitely trust the smell. That I'm not cautioning on. But the most beautiful facility is not always the right fit.
Yes.
So ask another question is, and this is one I always ask, what's the longevity of their staff? Because how they treat their staff who are treating your loved one is huge, because your loved one will form a bond with those staff members. And really good facilities and companies treat their staff like family as well. You don't want turnover there very much either. Turnover is inevitable, but you want as much continuity as possible. So trust your nose, but also look at the relationships. Are people smiling? Are people happy to see the residents?
What about the staff to resident ratio?
Absolutely. So you're going to want that too. And that changes based on skilled care versus assisted living. Independent living, you know, that's truly like owning your own apartment.
Right.
So, but there's staff there. So in independent living, you have a fall, there are staff that can come help you. But yes, the staff to resident ratio is important. And I would also, and this is something I would ask, I don't know if a family would think to ask it, but I want to see the ratio of skilled providers versus non-skilled. So don't just lump everything from the cooking staff, the housekeeping staff, the hairdressing staff in with nursing staff, because there's a difference.
Right, that makes sense, yes. What are some of the biggest mistakes or misconceptions families have when choosing a care facility for themselves or a loved one?
I would say the biggest misconception probably would be kind of what I already touched on, which is the most beautiful facility is always the best. I would also say location is highly important. So if the most beautiful facility, you live in Elkhorn, but the most beautiful facility is in Papillion, and you're not going to be able to get there but once or twice a week just to give your mom or dad a hug, that may not be best for them. Some people would be like, please don't come visit me, more than, because I'm busy with all my friends. But sometimes it all depends on family dynamics and your ability and trust in that staff. So I think that don't always get, not just what I want to say, like, oh, it's so beautiful in here, everything's so modern, so everything. It really matters on who's taking care of your loved one as well.
Right.
Not to diss the beautiful places, because there are some really amazing facilities out there.
I would also say maybe, because I have a background in marketing, is like they could have the most fantastic branding and marketing brochures and just have the most wonderful stories. But trust your instincts when
your
you're on that tour.
And when we set up tours for you, we would ask the questions: do you want a bigger facility? Do you want a corporate-owned facility? Do you want a local facility? There are facilities here that have 8 residents in a home. And so and they're locally owned by people in our community. And of course, people in our community all work in them, but there are some that are corporate-owned. Not that that's bad. Everybody needs something different. It depends on what you want for your loved one and what your loved one wants.
Right. So we're going to wrap up here. We've got about 1 minute left.
Okay.
What advice would you give to families who may feel overwhelmed emotionally or even guilty about starting this conversation with their loved one? Like they're thinking, this is going to be an argument. You know,
Right.
this is not going to be a comfortable conversation.
And unfortunately in life, when we care for others, sometimes uncomfortable conversations must be had, but you're doing it for their benefit. And I think the best thing to do would be, this is a conversation we need to have. We've identified professionals that can help us with this, and maybe staying home is your best option, but we'd come in and say, here's the options. So, you know, here's where you're at in life, here's what your finances look like. How important is social activity to you? How important is this? Maybe staying home is the best option, and that's great. We'd recommend that. And maybe you have people come in and help set that up, but maybe it's not. And here's the benefits that you can glean. I mean, this is what we would be telling your loved one, or you would be telling them, that they don't even realize. That social aspect, I cannot emphasize that enough for residents. No matter what level of ability they still have, and that's something else we need to focus on. Don't focus on what they cannot do.
Right.
Focus on what they can do and how long we can keep that from declining.
Yeah.
And so that's the message you try and send to your loved one, is you're still able to do all of this stuff.
And have a good quality life.
Yes.
Yes.
Would you like more friends? Would you like this? Have those conversations. It can be hard depending on your loved one, but most of them, I mean, we all know we're aging. None of us get out of here alive. So they're fortunate to have a loved one that cares enough about them to bring up that conversation.
And change doesn't have to be bad.
No, it can be so good.
Yeah. Okay.
That the last thing we want is someone to fall down and be unable to get up.
Right.
Those old commercials, remember those?
I do.
Let's get them happy and healthy.
Yes. Well, I just want to thank you so much, Dawn, first of all, for joining me here
Thank
today.
you.
This has been such a great conversation, and I want to thank everybody for watching. Have a great day.